Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we are unlocking the literal foundation of every great woodworking project, which is, of course, timber seasoning. Now, you already know that building with green, wet wood is just, well, it's a total recipe for disaster. But how exactly do we master that transformation? Going from a waterlogged tree to reliable, rock-solid timber. Well, that is exactly what we're exploring today in our ultimate guide to seasoning. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover, number 1, what timber seasoning actually is. 2, the natural air drying method. 3, the artificial kiln drying method. 4, comparing air and kiln. And finally, number 5, some new methods and modern best practices.
All right, starting off with Section 1. What is timber seasoning? We're going to look at the basic definition and its main purpose.
Think about it. If you use wet wood for a project, as it naturally dries out, it's going to shrink, bend, warp, and inevitably crack. Seasoning is our absolute best solution to that. It simply means drying the wood to carefully remove all that moisture trapped inside. And I want to be clear here, it isn't just about making the wood feel dry to the touch. Actually, scratch that. It's way more than that. This process is absolutely crucial because it makes the timber fundamentally stronger, turning raw organic matter into a highly reliable building material.
To put that into perspective, think of it like everyday moisture management, right? I mean, you wouldn't pull a dripping wet shirt straight out of the washing machine and just put it on. Or, try to start a roaring campfire with a bunch of damp logs. It just wouldn't work. In the exact same way, raw timber needs to be properly dried out before it can actually perform at its peak.
Moving right along to Section 2, the natural air drying method. Let's see how we can use the environment to our advantage. So, air drying. This is the traditional, old-school approach. It literally just means leaving the wood out in the open air, allowing the sun and the wind to slowly do the heavy lifting of evaporating the moisture. People have been doing it this way for centuries, and it remains super popular today because, well, it's incredibly cheap, it's wonderfully simple, and it relies entirely on free energy from Mother Nature.
But listen, you can't just toss a bunch of wood into a random messy pile on your lawn and hope for the best. And this brilliantly illustrates why. A proper stack actually requires some very specific architecture. Notice the rain-proof overhanging roof up top to protect everything from sudden downpours. And look at how the boards are perfectly aligned and separated by those thin little wood strips. In the industry, we call those stickers.
Getting these standards right is exactly what prevents rot and guarantees an even drying process. Step 1, you absolutely must keep the stack raised off the ground on piers to avoid sucking up soil moisture. Step 2, those stickers we just talked about, they have to be spaced perfectly, exactly one above the other. This creates clear, unobstructed channels so the wind can flow right through the whole stack. And Step 3, protect it all with a solid rain-proof roof. It's a simple natural system for sure, but highly engineered.
Okay, let's pivot to Section 3, the artificial kiln drying method. This is all about speeding up the process. Now, while nature is undeniably effective, man, is it slow. That's where artificial kiln drying comes in. This method uses heavy-duty, specialized factory equipment to aggressively speed things up. Basically, a kiln is just a massive, hot drying oven. It gives manufacturers this heavily controlled, heated environment where they can dial in the exact temperature and humidity. And because of that control, they can draw out the moisture in just a tiny fraction of the time. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the brilliant engineering happening inside a compartment kiln. You've got these hot pipes doing the work of heating the air, while steam jets are carefully regulating the humidity. You know why? Because drying wood too quickly is a huge mistake. It causes catastrophic cracking. So, this perfectly balanced air is forcefully circulated right through the timber stack. And then a dedicated extraction fan pulls all that moist air right out. It creates this continuous, rapid cycle of heating and extracting. Which brings us to Section 4, comparing air and kiln drying. Let's look at the great timber showdown. So, when we place these two primary methods head-to-head, time and control are the obvious differentiators, right? Air drying takes exactly as long as nature decides, while kiln drying is tightly, artificially controlled by heat. But there is a massive, often overlooked, hidden differentiator here: sterilization. See, air drying doesn't eradicate fungi, mold, or those pesky insects living deep inside the log, but the intense heat of a kiln, it goes a step further and sterilizes the wood completely. To objectively break down the trade-offs, Air drying is incredibly cost-effective and easy, but it is agonizingly slow and totally at the mercy of the weather. On the flip side, kiln drying is exceptionally fast and highly controlled, but it is expensive and requires a huge budget for equipment. Ultimately, the choice between the two is going to depend entirely on your timeline, your wallet, and exactly what your specific project needs.
All right, last section, Section 5, New Methods and Best Practices. We're looking at modern innovations in wood drying.
The timber industry is constantly evolving, coming up with some pretty crazy high-tech alternatives. First, there's the chemical treatment method, which pre-treats the wood to speed up natural drying. Then you have microwave energy. Yeah, it's literally scaling up the tech in your kitchen microwave to blast the wood with ultra-fast, penetrating internal heat. Then there's temperature conditioning, which uses tiny micro-adjustments in temp to finish the drying flawlessly. And finally, press drying. This one combines extreme heat with heavy mechanical pressure, which makes the wood uniquely smooth and incredibly strong. But listen, regardless of the method you end up using, calculating the final moisture content is absolutely non-negotiable. So the crucial point is knowing exactly how much water is still trapped in there. And the gold standard for that, a moisture meter. It gives you the definitive, hard data you need to prove the seasoning is 100% complete. It is the only real way to guarantee the timber is genuinely stable and finally ready for the saw.
Now, if you want a fantastic little mental checklist to help lock this into your memory forever, just remember the acronym AKPMA. That stands for air drying, kiln drying, procedures, moisture, and advantages. Seriously, just keep AKPMA in your back pocket and you've got all the fundamentals of timber seasoning perfectly covered.
So, to wrap this all up, the true power of seasoned timber really boils down to this. Dry wood is just fundamentally stronger, safer, and infinitely better to work with. Taking the time to carefully remove that moisture is the crucial, invisible step that transforms a vulnerable, shifting natural resource into the rock-solid, permanent foundation of our built environment.
Now, to end this explainer, I want to challenge you with a few quick review questions to see what stuck. 1. What does seasoning actually mean? 2. Which method is faster, air or kiln? And 3. Why is drying wood so critically important in the first place? Next time you sit down at a beautiful wooden table or walk into a timber-framed house, ask yourself what unseen method locked that wood into place. Was it the patient months-long breath of nature or the precise, aggressive heat of a modern kiln? It's pretty amazing to think that the world around us is held together by this invisible science. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we will catch you next time.